Welcome to He Cooks, He Bakes. I'm your host Fred, and today we're going to be doing a cabbage stir fry with chicken teriyaki and a cream cheese red velvet brownie. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so since the dessert typically takes the longest to cook, we're going to go ahead and get started with that first. So to this bowl we're going to add a stick of butter, and you can find the link to the recipe on my blog that's listed down below, as well as in the About You section. I'm just going to use a spatula to get the rest of the butter off the paper. Butter is room temperature, as well as the eggs and the cream cheese. Alright. Now to that, we're going to add 2 eggs. I'm using this cup to crack the eggs into first so I don't get any eggshells in there. Alright. Alright, so we're going to pour those in here. And I'm going to use this whisk to begin to whisk them together. You can also do this in a stand mixer. I'm just electing not to at this time. And then to this, I'm going to add 3/4 cup of sugar. It's been a long time since I've done a YouTube video, so I'm trying to get back into it. And this time I believe I found my niche. Last time I was doing things that I really didn't have a passion for. Cooking and baking is definitely a strong passion of mine. Alright. Now that that is combined, I'm going to go ahead and add my vanilla. And I'm going to add my red food coloring, as well as my apple cider vinegar. Stir that up. Get that combined really good. I got a little bit of salt and 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder. So I'm going to switch over to the spatula as I begin to add in my flour. This is, so that was 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 1/4 tablespoon of salt, 3/4 tablespoon of vanilla, 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/2 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, and that was 3 teaspoons of red food coloring. And then for the flour, we got 2/3 cup. All right. I'm scraping the sides as I go to make sure everything is well combined. Alright, so that's pretty combined. That's combined pretty well. I'm gonna go ahead and get my baking dish. Alright, and this is the baking dish I chose to use because there's not a lot of brownie mix. Not as much as I thought it was going to be. I'm just going to spray it down with some Pam. Make sure I get all the sides and the corner. Alright. I'm going to put this into here. I'm going to scrape it as well as I can to try to get as much of the batter out as possible. Right. I'm going to flatten this out. Try to get it as even as possible before we start working on the cream cheese portion. Alright, and then we're going to set this to the side and then work on the cream cheese portion. Alright, so the cream cheese portion of this recipe is really simple. It's really only 4 ingredients. An 8-ounce pack of cream cheese, 1 egg, a half teaspoon of vanilla, and a 1/4 cup of sugar. Yes, I am using the same bowl. I did wash it out off camera. Again, the cream cheese and the egg is room temperature. And I'm also going to use a spatula to try to get this excess cream cheese off the foil. All right. So there's the cream cheese. Then again with the egg into the cup, into the bowl. I'm going to whisk these two together as best as we can. Now for this, going forward, this is the first time I've ever done this recipe, so I didn't think it would be this hard to whisk it with just a whisk. So going forward, I will probably do this in a stand mixer. I'll go ahead and add my sugar in, see if that helps. And that is helping a little bit. Also, one thing I didn't think about beforehand is that whisking this by hand is going to take longer because it's going to take longer to get the lumps out of the cream cheese. Just using a spatula to get the cream cheese out of the center of the whisk. I'm going to go ahead and throw my vanilla in there. to get it as smooth as you can if you're doing it by hand. That's about as smooth as I'm going to be able to get it by hand. So we're going to take this and put it over the top of the brownie mixer. All right. Smooth that out. If it starts to mix in, don't worry about it, because you're going to do one more step before you bake it. I do have my oven preheated to 350. And then we're going to take a disposable fork, just kind of swirl it together. Don't want it mixed together, but just kind of swirl it. Then I'm shaking it to kind of level it out a little bit. And then it's going to bake for It's going to bake for 25 to 35 minutes. So I went ahead and started the timer. I'm going to go ahead and clean up, and then we're going to move on to the next dish. Alright, so for the cabbage stir fry, we're going to start off by putting our noodles on. So I just have regular spaghetti. You can use whatever kind of noodles you prefer. I prefer spaghetti. So just going to dump those in the pot. Now this is not a full pack because I did use some of these noodles for another dish previously. So it's about two-thirds full. Then we got about a half a gallon of water. So I just want the pot to be about halfway full so that the noodles can cook nicely. So I'm not even going to use all of that. I'm going to put this on the stove. Now I do usually break mine. I'm sure there's some spaghetti folks out there that's cringing because I just broke that, but hey, this is my recipe. I'm going to put this on the stove. Alright, so while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and chop up our vegetables for the cabbage stir fry. Again, I'm using, the base of this is somebody else's recipe, but I'm doing some other things to make it my own. So I started off camera by chopping up 2 carrots. Actually, it was 4 carrots. They were kind of small. And then I'm going to add to that half a bell pepper of each color. I like this knife better. Now I just moved to Charlotte about a month and a half ago, almost 90 days ago. And since I've been here, I've been like really on this kick about not wasting food. So the insides of these bell peppers, I actually don't throw them away. There's two things I would do with them. The first being I would store them up and then I would make a vegetable stock later on. But lately, because I don't have a deep freezer right now, and I'm considering on whether or not I'm going to even get one. The second thing is I feed them to my dog. Peppers are really good for boosting metabolism. So since I have a young dog, I save them for him, and he loves them. Another thing you can do for dogs, you can make a stuffed bell pepper. I personally don't eat yogurt or anything like that, but those that do eat yogurt, they usually, from what I've seen, is they take the Greek, like a Greek yogurt, and mix it with the kibble and some of the other dog treats, and freeze the bell peppers, and then like when you leave for work, give the dog one of the bell peppers. So everything I'm doing, I actually wrote into a blog on my website, and down below in the description you'll see a link to that blog. In that blog, if you want to see the original recipes, you're gonna click on the different links in the blog, and then you can also click on the link to see my recipe that I made from this. My best friend keeps telling me that I should do dog treats. I don't know if that's something I want to get into, but hey, maybe. My knife skills are not horrible, but they're not the best, so some of my cuts are not as even as they probably should be. And if I was to go to culinary school, that would be one of the reasons why, to learn how to do better knife cuts. That's if I can't find cooking classes outside of culinary school that offer those things. Now, I really didn't follow the recipe for this stir fry. The recipes, I should say. I mainly use them for the ingredients, and I'm going to do my own steps. Same thing with the chicken teriyaki. One of the steps they said do with the chicken teriyaki was to let it marinate, and I honestly had enough time to allow it to marinate. However, I wanted to do all my prep work before I started filming, and I even wanted to, if I was going to marinate, I wanted that to be filmed as well. So since I chose not to marinate, I'm filming everything now. And all these peppers were originally about medium to small size peppers. I used the other half in another recipe that I did last week, but I did not film that for YouTube. If you follow me on any of the social media platforms, under my personal page, you can see the video of that there. So I'm only going to use half of the red onion. The other half I'll use in another recipe. The reason I didn't cut the end off is because when you cut the end off, that's when you typically get the fumes that cause you to tear up. And the peppers and the bell onions are two of the changes that I made to the two recipes that I combined to make my own recipe. Mainly because when I think stir fry, I think peppers and onions. And the recipe did not call for that. Hence why it is now my own, because I'm doing something that the recipe didn't call for. Okay, so we're going to set that to the side and then work on our cabbage. Okay, so now this is a big head of cabbage. So actually it's more like a medium sized head. You can do it with a small head and use the whole cabbage. I'm going to use probably 2/3 of this cabbage. And then, so we'll cut that part off. I just want to start kind of cutting into shreds. Now, me personally, I don't mind doing the extra steps of cutting my own cabbage. But if you don't want to do that, you can use a slaw mix. As you can see, these are some pretty fine shreds. You don't have to turn yours, I just choose to turn mine. That's the way I've always shredded my cabbage, by periodically turning as I'm slicing. I just like to break it up as I'm putting it in a bowl. And basically what I'm doing is I'm just cutting down around the core. And this honestly is probably enough. However, I'm probably going to cut this last little side off on this, around the core, and then evaluate if I'm going to cut above the core. So I'm using more cabbage than I thought I would. Next up, we're going to start with the chicken teriyaki while the cabbage and vegetables are cooking. But I've already cleaned and cut the cabbage off camera. I'm sorry, the chicken off camera. I'm using chicken thighs. You can use chicken breasts if you choose to. You can use ground chicken. I'm choosing chicken thighs. Alright, I'm just going to cut this little part off here. Then the rest of that core I'm going to toss. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get cleaned up from this part because we clean as we go. And then I'm going to show you what we're going to do next. Alright, so I just checked on the brownies, got a couple more, about 12 more minutes on those, so we're going to go ahead and get started on the chicken teriyaki as well as the cabbage stir fry. So in this pot we're going to start with the cabbage stir fry, starting with a couple tablespoons of avocado oil. Go ahead and throw a couple tablespoons in this skillet as well. Alright. Let that warm up for a little bit if you want. I preheated the pan, so they should be pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw my onions, peppers, and carrots into this pot. And then while that is cooking, we're gonna go ahead and work on the chicken teriyaki. Now again, off camera, I did go ahead and clean and wash the chicken thighs. So we're gonna go ahead and add those to this avocado oil. Ah, shit. Burnt myself. Didn't burn as bad as I thought it was gonna. More of a splash. Now what's crazy is that I went to the store last night to get these chicken thighs, and they only had one pack of chicken thighs, and it was $10. That was already, that pack was boneless, skinless, right? But they had several packs of bone-in, skin-on thighs, and so I looked at those, and it was actually cheaper to buy the bone-in. Yeah, so it was actually cheaper to buy the bone-in, so that's what I did. I deboned these and skinned them and got a lot of the nasty looking fat off of them. No, I did not season any of this yet. I will season as I go, and you'll see that. Alright, so I'm going to start with some black pepper. This is the chicken again. A little black pepper. A little garlic powder, onion powder, seasoning salt, so if you end up doing like I did, cutting, cleaning, and deboning my own chicken thighs, you want to end up with about 2 pounds of meat. I think I got about 2.5, 3 pounds. We just want these vegetables to just start to sweat down. I'm going to throw some seasoning in that as well. A little bit of black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and seasoned salt. Then we're also going to go ahead and throw our ginger in here. Give it a good stir. We're going to let these do their thing, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. Now that the chicken is going pretty good, we're going to go ahead and add our the white parts off the green onion. So just chop the tops off and then dice up the white parts. We're going to let this cook for a few more minutes before we add our next ingredient. The other thing I'm going to go ahead and add right now is the garlic. I know I'm not giving you guys exact measurements like I did with the brownies. That's because I don't want to keep looking over at my paper. But it is all in the blog post as well as in the recipe cards that are on my website. So here's our garlic. That's our timer for our brownies. I did already take them out the oven. Alright, so once you have the vegetables cooked down to your liking, go ahead and take them out the pot and put some to the side. Now to this pot I'm going to add some vegetable oil, some olive oil, and some sesame oil. Then we're going to start layering in our cabbage. Yes, I did wash this cabbage off camera. Alright, so that's about half our cabbage. We're going to let that start to wilt down. Then we'll start adding our other ingredients. Alright, so the chicken is taking a little bit longer than it should because I didn't realize that the plug had to come out a little bit. So I got that back in. It's going. It's starting to get some really good color on it. Still paying attention to this cabbage. Now with the cabbage, we are not making fried cabbage or sauteed cabbage. Actually, it's more sauteed than not. But we're definitely not doing fried cabbage, so we don't really want to try to get any color on it. Just wanted to start to wilt down before we start doing everything else to it. So that was the first layer of cabbage. Now we're going to go ahead and add in our garlic and some red crushed pepper flakes. Remember I said we don't waste food around here, so we're going to get all this garlic out of here. And then we got some ground cloves. And some brown sugar. Begin to mix this through. That's starting to look really good. I'm going to layer some more cabbage on there. If you have a wok, this is probably the best. That's probably the best vessel or a larger pot to do this kind of dish in. Alright, so we got all our cabbage in there. I'm going to let this wilt down. I'm actually about to grab a top and put that on there, and then I'll be back. Alright, so just stirred it up a little bit. Got some of that top cabbage down to the bottom. So we're going to start mixing our other ingredients in. I'm going to start with some apple cider vinegar. Some sriracha. Sriracha is really thick, so I'm actually going to mix a little water in with this. I try not to use tap water, so this is the water that was left over from the pasta. Alright. We got some soy sauce, some coconut aminos, some hoisin sauce, and some molasses. to the molasses. The last thing was the soy sauce, I believe. I didn't label these. Yes, that was the soy sauce. This is the coconut aminos. It's not as dark as the soy sauce. And then we got 3 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. We're gonna get us a good mix. We'll get this good mix and let it wilt down some more before we add the rest. Add the vegetables back in and the pasta. So while we let that go, we're gonna turn our attention back to the chicken. The chicken is pretty much done at this point. So we're gonna add some brown sugar, some soy sauce, some ground ginger, we got some honey, got some molasses, and a little bit of vegetable oil and sesame oil. No, that's apple cider vinegar. That's the sesame oil. All right. So let this go for a little bit. Get those flavors marinating. And then I'm going to come back and thicken this up, and I'm going to show you how. Okay, so the chicken is really going now, starting to boil. The cabbage is wilted down. The pot is about halfway full, so we're going to go ahead and put our vegetables back in there. We're going to mix those up and let those go for a few minutes before we add in the pasta. Alright, so with this cup, we're going to make a little slurry. So we got a couple tablespoons of cornstarch here. And some water. Just want to try to dissolve that cornstarch as much as possible. That way you don't get lumps of cornstarch in your chicken when you pour it in there. Alright, that should be enough. I'm going to pour this in. I'm going to wait a few minutes and the sauce should thicken up. Alright, going to give it a couple minutes. Now we're going to add our noodles to our cabbage. And as I glance over at the chicken, I see it's already giving me really thick bubbles. Alright, so this cabbage you can actually go ahead and turn off. I'm literally making a mess on the back side here. I don't know if you guys can tell. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. I'm gonna let this chicken go a couple more minutes, get a little bit thicker. Now I'll be back. So the chicken is almost done, so I'm gonna go ahead and start plating up. Alright, so the chicken is pretty much done. It's nice and thick. I'm going to turn this off. Now the sauce is probably a little bit more runny than what I would like. But as it cools off, it'll thicken up some more. Alright, so we're going to garnish with a little bit of green onion and some sesame seeds. And there you have it. Alright, so I like a nice corner piece. Look at that. For the gram. Just trying to make it a little more presentable. Honestly, I probably made it look worse. Alright, so there you have today's episode of He Cooks, He Bakes. So I want to try to get an episode out at least once a week, preferably on Sundays. I know this is going up on a Monday. However, bear with me. I'm getting back into this. I do still work full time out when I'm off camera, so bear with me. If you have any suggestions on what I should cook or bake next, don't be afraid to drop them down below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on all of my platforms to stay up to date on when a new episode is coming out. All right, until next time,